Hey guys, tonight we're plunging into a holiday so deeply embedded in our wallets that even Cupid would need a receipt, Valentine's Day. But not just any Valentine's Day. I'm talking about the version manufactured by 1950s American companies. Corporate cupids in grey flannel suits, rubbing their hands together in boardrooms while plotting the invention of romantic guilt. Forget about medieval plagues or Viking invasions. Tonight, you're up against an even more terrifying force, the advertising department at a post-war greeting card company. Before you get cozy, do me a small favour, tap like and subscribe, but only if you're genuinely enjoying these late-night historical adventures. And thank you for suggesting this topic. I love when your ideas turn into full-blown time travel chaos like this. Drop a comment and tell me which product you've personally felt guilty about buying. The last thing I impulse purchased was a self-sharpening cheese grater, which now lives a far more fulfilling life as a doorstop. Now, dim the lights, fire up that fan for maximum white noise, and wriggle yourself into the most comfortable position you can muster. Preferably one where you can pretend you're not lying awake over-analysing a $7.99 heart-shaped box of stale chocolates. Let's pause for a second. Have you ever wondered if your spouse truly loves you, or if they just fear your disappointment when you don't receive a card shaped like a kidney bean with googly eyes? Do you secretly believe the flowers you buy in February are genetically engineered to wilt the moment your partner stops looking? Have you ever found yourself in the seasonal aisle at a pharmacy, panic buying whatever is pink and edible, praying it will erase all memories of last year's tragic teddy bear incident? And what about the ads? Did couples in the 1950s really gaze longingly at each other over TV dinners? Or was that just a clever way to sell more instant mashed potatoes? Well, congratulations. You've just woken up in 1953, the golden age of guilt-based marketing. The radio's crooning, your suit itches, and you're pretty sure your wife has started dropping subtle hints about someone's anniversary. Good luck. You open your eyes to the sweet sound of Perry Como on the radio and the bitter aftertaste of last year's forgotten Valentine's card. In 1953, missing Valentine's Day isn't just an oversight. It's a federal offence in the court of marital opinion. Even your toast seems to judge you. You stare at the ceiling, which is currently decorated with a tasteful assortment of cracks, and try to recall whether you remembered to buy the right card this year. The one with the glitter? The sappy poem? Did you sign it forever yours? Or did you panic and just scrawl your name like you were endorsing a check? Somewhere in the back of your mind, a voice whispers, "It wasn't enough." That voice is probably your conscience, but you're pretty sure it sounds suspiciously like your mother-in-law. Outside, a winter wind rattles the window, as if even the weather is shaking its head at your romantic inadequacy. You drag yourself out of bed, careful not to wake your spouse just yet. It's not fear exactly, it's more of a healthy respect for the power of delayed disappointment. If you're lucky, they're still dreaming of last night's heart-shaped meatloaf, and not the fact that you forgot to put your signature on the card again. The floor is cold, but the real chill is psychological. February 15th is a minefield of subtle cues, unspoken sighs, and a breakfast table that radiates more tension than a bomb squad convention. You shuffle to the bathroom, practicing your best. I definitely nailed Valentine's Day face in the mirror. Unfortunately, the mirror is not on your side. It reflects back the image of a person who, statistically, was 67% more likely to be awake at midnight wondering if I owe you a foot rub counts as a real present. You rehearse your lines anyway. Did you sleep well? Did you like the flowers? No, I didn't forget the chocolates there in the car. The script is shaky, but it's all you've got. In the kitchen, the smell of percolating coffee does its best to lift your spirits. You pour yourself a cup and reach for the toast. It lands predictably, butter side down, a small domestic metaphor for your current romantic standing. The kitchen radio croons a dreamy love song, the kind that makes even dish soap feel lonely, and you realise that somewhere out there, advertisers are already preparing for next year's Valentine's onslaught. You make a mental note, start saving for roses in June. Your spouse enters, hair slightly rumpled, clutching a mug. You offer a smile that's 1 part loving, 2 parts please don't mention the card. They raise an eyebrow. Good morning? You wait. They wait. In the 1950s, marriage is basically a Cold War of breakfast diplomacy. One wrong move and you'll be negotiating peace talks over burnt bacon and a bruised ego. You launch a preemptive compliment. You look beautiful this morning. It's a risk, but desperate times, desperate measures. Conversation eventually turns to the previous evening. You nod, you smile. You listen as your spouse recounts which of their friends got what gifts. Edith's husband bought her pearls. Helen's got a new mixer. Even George managed a dozen roses. You feign delight, all the while mentally preparing your defence for when the inevitable cross-examination arrives. In this post-war suburbia, Valentine's Day is a competition nobody admits they're in, but everyone is keeping score. The dishes clink, the radio hums, and you catch your reflection in the toaster, a face that survived another year of commercialised romance. Maybe you didn't write a sonnet or sweep anyone off their feet, but you did your best. And in 1953, sometimes your best is just showing up with a smile, a card, or close enough, and the hope that love is more than a marketing scheme. You promise yourself that next year you'll do better, maybe even remember the card and the signature. But for now, you refill your coffee, share a quiet smile across the table, and let the morning unfold, secure in the knowledge that in the grand tradition of American romance, survival counts as a win. As you shuffle to the kitchen, you're greeted by your shiny, chrome-plated toaster, a recent gift that was more suggestion than surprise. The only thing warmer than your coffee is the pile of breakfast appliance ads that came in the mail, each promising to make you a better husband, son, and existential consumer. You stare at the Toastmaster, its polished surface glinting in the pale morning sun, reflecting back a version of yourself who is perpetually 3 days behind on home repairs and one burned bagel away from complete domestic collapse. Next to it sits the matching percolator, bubbling with caffeinated optimism. You remember when kitchen gifts were still considered romantic gestures. Now every new appliance feels less like a present and more like a performance review in Chrome. Breakfast in 1953 isn't just about eggs and toast, it's about proving your worth through the medium of small machinery. The advertising world has decreed it so. The pamphlet on the table reads, "Show her you care with the gift of reliable toast." You try to imagine a universe where someone actually burst into tears of joy over a heating element and some bread. Maybe it's possible, but probably only in a parallel dimension where happiness comes in wattage. You slide 2 slices into the machine, trying not to think about last year's romantic blender incident. A disaster involving a misread ad, a too eager sales clerk, and a Valentine smoothie that tasted like spinach and subtle disappointment. As the toaster hums to life, you thumb through the heap of advertisements. Mixers that promise to revolutionize your mornings, coffee pots that save marriages, waffle irons that double as status symbols. Apparently, nothing says eternal love quite like matching kitchen gear with a 2-year limited warranty. Your spouse enters, eyeing the toaster with a faint suspicion, reserved for small appliances and new houseplants. "Did you remember to clean the crumb tray?" they ask. It's less a question, more a quiz. In the 1950s, the state of your appliances is a direct reflection of your soul. "Of course," you reply, with all the confidence of someone who absolutely did not clean the crumb tray. The radio is on, tuned to a cheerful jingle about the joys of automatic percolation. You wonder when exactly breakfast stopped being a meal and became an infomercial. "Start your day the Toastmaster way," croons a disembodied baritone. You try to ignore the voice in your head, the one that sounds like a used car salesman in a Cupid costume whispering, "Don't disappoint her, buy more toast." The bread pops up, perfectly golden brown on one side, slightly singed on the other. You tell yourself it's artisan. You spread margarine with the careful precision of a surgeon, if a surgeon used a butter knife and worked while half awake. Your spouse sips coffee, glancing through a magazine featuring a full-page ad for a matching egg cooker. Why settle for mediocrity in marriage or yolks? You briefly consider buying it, if only to avoid being compared to a kitchen gadget ever again. The table is set with the cold efficiency of a military operation. Plates, mugs, a tidy dish of jam, everything in its place. You realise breakfast is now a quiet contest between you and your neighbour, Mr. Henderson, who recently acquired a deluxe 4-slice toaster with synchronized browning. The arms race of appliances is on, and you're only one step away from buying a bread slicer just to keep up. There's something reassuring, though, about the steady ritual of breakfast. The hiss of the percolator, the soft click of the toaster, the gentle clatter of plates. It's a symphony of domestic comfort, or at least the closest thing you get to romance before 8 a.m. In this world, love is measured not in grand gestures, but in the reliability of hot coffee and unburnt toast. You finish your meal, rinse your plate, and give the toaster a little nod of respect. Maybe it's not the poetry of sonnets, but in 1953 nothing says I care like not electrocuting your spouse before sunrise. The appliance hums, the coffee warms your hands, and somewhere an ad executive nods in satisfaction. You promise yourself that tomorrow you'll try the new waffle iron, for love of course, or maybe just for breakfast. In the age of appliances, it's sometimes hard to tell the difference. The mailbox is stuffed with cards and catalogues, featuring rosy-cheeked cartoon hearts and frowning cupids. Each envelope is a paper-thin threat. Buy something, or face the silent treatment. In 1950s suburbia, even junk mail comes with emotional consequences. You eye the stack with the same suspicion you reserve for fruitcake and unsolicited advice. Somewhere in this pile of pastel and perfumed paper, there's an unspoken promise. Buy the right gift, or sleep with one eye open. The postman, who used to deliver news and the occasional birthday card, now works as Cupid's silent enforcer, slipping subtle warnings into your home 6 days a week. Rain, sleet, or existential dread, he always delivers. You bring the mail inside like it's radioactive, careful not to let your spouse see the thickness of the stack. Because in 1953, the volume of Valentine's mail is directly proportional to your perceived affection. Too little, and you look like a cheapskate. Too much, and you'll spend the next week explaining why the Montgomery Ward catalogue addressed you as Dearest Snuggle Bunny. You sort the pile. First, the obvious ads, dozens of them, each more desperate than the last. Show your love with a diamond the size of a grape. New this year, singing Valentine dolls slightly less creepy than last year's model. Does your relationship need more fizz? Try Cherry Love Cola. Some are addressed to our favourite couple. Others are ominously blank, like a passive-aggressive note from the universe. The guilt is palpable, the pressure relentless. There are the cards, pre-signed, mass-produced, and brimming with rhymes so saccharine they could cause a cavity at 20 paces. One features a cartoon dog holding a rose. Another has a heart with an unsettling human face. You wonder what kind of person designed these things, and if they ever truly loved anything besides font choices. You debate whether to display the best of them on the mantel as a sort of festive shield, or hide them in the drawer next to your emergency apology chocolates. Then comes the catalogue avalanche. Jewellery, chocolates, colognes, and, most ominously, household appliances, each promising a Valentine she'll never forget. There's a new section this year for gifts for him, filled with Argyle socks and pipes you will never smoke. You suspect the pipe is a trap, like a test to see if you can pull off distinguished without accidentally burning down the garage. Every page is filled with smiling couples, perfectly coiffed, holding hands over a gleaming new vacuum or a bowl of gelatin. You're not sure if you're supposed to feel in love or just vaguely competitive. You circle a few things in pencil, knowing full well you won't buy them, but hoping that leaving the catalogue open to a specific page might count as effort. In the 1950s, passive gift suggestions are practically a love language. You hear your spouse rummaging in the next room, so you hastily shuffle the mail, hiding the less flattering ads at the bottom of the pile. The tension is real. Did they see the card addressed from the florist? Did you accidentally toss last year's sentimental letter in with the Montgomery Ward ad? You wonder if other couples are this strategic with their correspondence, or if they've just given in and signed up for a monthly subscription to generic affection. A lone postcard tumbles out. It's from your in-laws, wishing you romantic luck and reminding you that Edith's husband just bought her a set of matching pearls. You stare at the card, then at your reflection in the toaster, and wonder if Edith's husband is secretly a Rockefeller, or just better at reading the fine print on department store layaway plans. You finish your mail sorting, stack the catalogues by the door, and try to ignore the burning sense of romantic inadequacy that only direct mail can provide. In a world where love arrives postage paid and postmarked, you can't help but feel that every envelope is a test, and the pass/fail is written in invisible ink. As you brew a fresh cup of coffee, you remind yourself, love isn't measured in advertisements, but in the quiet courage it takes to open the mailbox every morning and face another day as a hopeless romantic in a world run by marketing. You wander into a drugstore and realise the greeting card aisle is longer than the cereal aisle. Hallmark's latest campaign has weaponised poetry, guilt, and foil embossing. Picking the wrong card could trigger a romantic incident of international proportions. You pause, overwhelmed by the sheer volume. Hundreds of cards arranged in a shimmering pastel gauntlet, everyone promising to solve the mysteries of the human heart for the price of a loaf of bread. Overhead, soft elevator music clashes gently with the emotional stakes. You feel like you're entering a diplomatic negotiation, only the diplomats are cherubs, and the treaties are written in glitter. A helpful store clerk appears, armed with a duster, and the kind of knowing smile that says, "You're not the first panicked shopper I've seen today." They gesture toward the For My Sweetheart section, a 5-foot stretch of meticulously sorted declarations, ranging from "You're my everything" to "I'm sorry about last year." You stand frozen. The pressure is immense. Every card is a potential landmine. Do you go for sentimental or funny? Is this the year for poetry, or do you risk it all with the minimalist "I love you"? That's it. You wish there were a United Nations for this. You read the first one. It rhymes, but not in a comforting way. My love for you is like a dove. You stop. You've never even seen a dove. Another card describes romance as endless as the sea. You haven't been to the beach in 7 years, but the card expects you to have nautical expertise and at least 2 types of feelings about starfish. You reach for a safe, neutral card. Pastel, a few hearts, nothing too dramatic. But the fine print at the bottom reads, "Forever and ever and ever and ever and ever." You do the math. That's 5 evers. Is that too many? Not enough. What if it sounds desperate? You briefly consider switching to the blank section, but you remember what happened last time you tried to write your own verse. Roses are red, socks are blue, we're out of milk and I love you. You're still hearing about it. A man in a trench coat next to you, looking equally lost, mutters, "I just want one that says I tried." You nod, silently acknowledging the universal struggle of romantic communication by committee. Down the aisle, a woman stands with an armful of cards, reading each aloud and rejecting them with a sigh that could wilt flowers. You glance at the humour section but quickly retreat, one wrong joke and you're explaining yourself till Easter. There's a card with a cartoon raccoon holding a heart, which feels somehow threatening. Another features a 3-dimensional pop-up bouquet so elaborate, you're pretty sure it doubles as emergency shelter. Time slows. You realise you've been standing in the aisle long enough for the pharmacist to start giving you worried looks. You finally grab a card that seems safe. Red, shiny, says "To the one I love" in dignified script. You head for the checkout, praying you didn't just buy a card that's been circulating since 1947. At home, you contemplate your purchase. Do you sign just your name, or go for a flourish? Will a little XOXO be enough, or does it look like you're negotiating a hostage release? You remember reading somewhere that the average American spends 6 minutes choosing a Valentine's card. You've been at this for 37. Later that night, your spouse opens the envelope, smiling politely. You wait, tense. Will this year's card unlock the secrets of your relationship, or will it become a bookmark in next year's catalogue of romantic mistakes? In the end, it's just a piece of folded paper with some words and a hope scribbled inside. You breathe out, finally. Another Hallmark-fueled battle survived. Because in the war on romance, all you can really do is show up, pick a card, and pray you didn't accidentally choose one that says "Happy Anniversary" in tiny print at the bottom. But that's okay. Tomorrow the real love will still be there, in the burnt toast and sleepy good mornings, long after the glitter's settled and the cards are recycled into next year's guilt. Next comes the candy gauntlet. Aisles bursting with pastel hearts, and boxes of chocolate so sugary they could power a Buick. Each treat promises love but delivers a subtle warning: skip the sweets, and you'll taste regret instead. You approach the candy section like a gladiator entering the Colosseum. The shelves are stacked with confections engineered by scientists who probably started out making industrial adhesives. Heart-shaped boxes beckon with shiny bows, some the size of manhole covers, each more garish than the last. It's a sugar-fueled battlefield, and you've brought nothing but a shaky resolve and a half-remembered coupon. The air is thick with the scent of artificial strawberry and guilt. You reach for a box, but pause. Is it too small, too big, too desperate? The logic of Valentine's candy is as mysterious as love itself. There are the fancy chocolates in gold foil, the kind with mysterious fillings that could be cherry, could be toothpaste. There are the classic conversation hearts, pastel-coloured and dusted with phrases like, "Be mine," "You are sweet," and "Call me," as if you aren't already living in the same house. You consider the merits. Chocolate says I care, but only if it's the right brand. The cheap stuff says I panicked at the gas station, while the premium variety says I'd like you to overlook that I forgot your birthday. Conversation hearts are a gamble, cute in theory, but by March they're as hard as driveway gravel and twice as unromantic. Still, everyone expects them. In 1953, you don't so much celebrate love as navigate the complex social rituals of confectionary etiquette. A mother next to you is herding two sugar-hyped children through the sticky aisles, both with fists full of candy they have no intention of paying for. She catches your eye, gives you a look that says, "We're in this together," and resumes trying to explain that you cannot eat your feelings in the store, at least not before 10 a.m. You see a man at the end of the aisle clutching 3 identical boxes, weighing his options like a blackjack dealer at a high-stakes table. You nod respectfully. He's playing a dangerous game. You finally settle on a heart-shaped box at the mid-price tier, luxurious enough to impress, modest enough not to raise questions about your spending habits. You reach for a bag of cinnamon hearts as backup just in case. Valentine's Day is no time for half measures. You add a few extra sweets to your basket for the kids, the neighbours, maybe the mailman. In the 1950s, nothing says community spirit like bribing everyone in sight with candy. At checkout, you realise your hands are covered in pink sugar dust and melted chocolate, like some kind of suburban raccoon caught raiding the confectionery bin. The clerk rings up your hall with the calm efficiency of someone who's seen the best and worst of human nature pass through these aisles. Mostly the worst, but with better hair. At home, you arrange the candy on the kitchen table, trying to create an Instagram moment decades before Instagram exists. Your spouse eyes the spread, equal parts delighted and suspicious. Did you buy too much? Not enough. Will this be remembered as the year of romantic abundance, or the year you bought the sugar-free sampler by mistake? Later, as the wrappers pile up and everyone's fingers stick to the tablecloth, you reflect on the strange calculus of holiday sweets. The kids are bouncing off the walls, you're on your 3rd chocolate truffle, and even the dog looks like he's developing a sweet tooth. You've survived another round of the Valentine's candy gauntlet, pockets lighter, teeth aching, but secure in the knowledge that sometimes love really is just a box of chocolates, messy, unpredictable, and a little too sweet. You wipe the last of the sugar from your hands, glance at the kitchen clock and make a silent vow. Next year, you'll start with the candy. Everything else can wait. You consider flowers but remember last year's withered bouquet. This time, you learn the hard way that roses in February cost more than a week's groceries. The florist gives you a look that says, "Love hurts, and so will your bill." Standing in the floral shop, you're surrounded by the scent of refrigeration and financial dread. Buckets of long-stemmed roses line the walls like crimson soldiers, each one standing at attention with a little price tag that makes you question the basic principles of capitalism. There's a sign, Valentine's Special, 12 roses. Ask about financing. You try to remember if you're here for love, or if you've accidentally wandered into a used car lot for botanists. A hopeful romantic next to you is holding a bouquet and a bank statement, doing mental math that will haunt his dreams until the next tax season. You contemplate branching out, maybe a simple bouquet of daisies, perhaps a potted plant. But no, the Valentine's Day arms race has only one winner, and it's spelled ROSES. Anything less might be interpreted as a passive-aggressive declaration of emotional bankruptcy. You approach the counter, clutching a modest bundle of roses. The florist, a woman with more experience in love and loss than anyone you've ever met, rings you up with the weary air of someone who's seen hearts broken over petunias. "Would you like to add a decorative ribbon?" she asks, already reaching for the most expensive option. You hesitate, but she's persuasive. It shows you care. Translation: it shows you're willing to mortgage the house for a scrap of satin. You glance around the shop. There's a sign in curly script, "Free delivery," with an asterisk so tiny it could hide in a bee's wing. The fine print: delivery only free with minimum $40 purchase, plus service charge, VAS charge, romance surcharge, and a nominal fee for existing in February. You realise you've entered a parallel universe where inflation is measured in petals. You think about last year's mistake, ordering late, the sad arrival of a half-frozen bouquet that looked like it had been rejected from a funeral. This year you're early, or so you thought. The best blooms have already been claimed by people who planned ahead, or those who know a guy named Sal behind the shop. You're left to choose between the premium roses, each stem thicker than your thumb and roughly the price of a steak dinner, or the budget option, a bouquet that leans heavily on baby's breath and wishful thinking. As you wait for your flowers to be wrapped, the shop radio plays a cheerful tune about everlasting love. You wonder if the songwriter has ever tried to split the cost of a dozen roses with a roommate. The florist finishes wrapping, adding a sprig of greenery and a smile that says, "You're going to want to keep the receipt." You thank her and try to hide the sticker shock. You tell yourself it's worth it. After all, you can't put a price on romance, unless you work in retail, in which case it's $3.99 per stem. Walking out with your precious cargo, you treat the bouquet with the kind of reverence reserved for priceless artifacts or live explosives. You guard it from cold wind, passing dogs, and the random hazards of 1950s suburbia, rogue tricycles, nosy neighbours, and children wielding snowballs with deadly accuracy. Back home, you present the roses, watching your spouse's reaction as closely as a scientist awaiting lab results. There's a smile, a nod, maybe even a kiss on the cheek. You relax temporarily. In the back of your mind, you remember, these roses have a lifespan measured in hours, not days. By morning, the petals will start their gentle, tragic wilt, a botanical reminder that true love, like floral arrangements, requires regular investment. As you clean up fallen petals from the kitchen counter, you vow to start saving for next year's bouquet immediately. Maybe by then you'll have paid off the romance surcharge. Until then, every bloom is a badge of honour, receipt for your troubles, and a slightly prickly reminder that in the battle of love versus commerce, the florist always wins. Returning home, you're ambushed by a magazine left open to a Valentine's Day dinner ideas spread. Nothing says romance like a recipe for pink gelatin moulded into the shape of a heart, served with a side of "Do you even care?" You stare at the glossy photo, equal parts fascinated and afraid. The gelatin, unnaturally pink and wobbling with quiet menace, glistens under a caption that reads, "Delight your loved one with a show-stopping Valentine's surprise." Next to it, a recipe for chicken a la king arranged into a smiley face. Somewhere, a food stylist is laughing, and you are not. It's 1953, and the kitchen has been transformed from a room for survival rations to a competitive arena of guilt and expectation. On the counter, another magazine features a full-page ad. Win his heart with a meal he'll remember. The meal in question appears to be a pork roast coated in something the colour of Pepto-Bismol. You wonder if anyone has ever survived this meal, or if it's simply been passed down through generations as a cautionary tale. You move to tidy up and discover more evidence of the Valentine's arms race, an open cookbook, 2 pages dog-eared for surprise heart salad and Cupid's chicken casserole. Every recipe seems to demand a new appliance, a different flavour of Jell-O, and the patience of a saint. You know you're in trouble when the grocery list includes crushed pineapple, maraschino cherries, and emotional resilience. The refrigerator is a microcosm of 1950s romance. There's a half-eaten ham, 3 kinds of margarine, and a small army of pastel-coloured gelatin moulds waiting for their big moment. You begin to suspect that the true test of love is how many of these foods you're willing to eat with a straight face. There's an unspoken understanding in every home. If someone took the time to suspend fruit, meat, or mystery items in gelatin, you must at least pretend to be impressed. You catch your spouse glancing between you and the magazine spread. Their smile is hopeful, but their eyes say, "Do not disappoint me in front of the pink salad." The kitchen fills with the quiet tension of culinary brinkmanship. The timer dings, a reminder that something, possibly the heart-shaped meatloaf, is almost ready to make its dramatic entrance. You set the table, arranging the utensils with the precision of a military operation. Candles? Of course. Paper doilies? Absolutely. A centerpiece made from construction paper and existential dread. That's the spirit. The meal arrives, pink gelatin, chicken casserole, and something that might be a vegetable, though it's been disguised so thoroughly in cheese sauce that you'll never know for sure. You sit, you smile, you eat. The gelatin wobbles as if in silent judgment. Each bite is a reminder that love in the 1950s is not a feeling but an act of supreme endurance. The conversation is peppered with praise. Did you use real pineapple? And strategic optimism. Maybe next year we'll try the steak recipe. Dessert arrives, a heart-shaped cake with "Be Mine" written in what appears to be toothpaste. You compliment the effort and the presentation, trying to ignore the growing suspicion that the cake is staring back at you. After dinner, as you help clear the dishes, the full power of the home economics guilt complex sets in. Did you notice the decorations? Did you appreciate the time spent zesting that lemon? Are you really going to eat that second helping of gelatin, or is this the year you admit you just don't like it? You offer to wash the dishes, the universal 1950s sign of contrition and affection. The kitchen, now littered with sticky plates and pink crumbs, feels like the site of a love-themed battle, one where victory is measured not in culinary triumph, but in small gestures of grace and patience. And as the night winds down, you realize that, underneath the gelatin, the casseroles, and the relentless ads, what matters most is that you showed up fork in hand, ready to try. In the kitchen battleground of Valentine's Day, survival is its own kind of romance. You glimpse your neighbours exchanging flowers and discreetly check the curb for signs of superior romantic gestures. In the 1950s, love isn't private. It's a competitive sport, scored by nosy window watchers and the occasional mother-in-law. You never meant for romance to become an Olympic event, but here you are, peeking through the living room drapes like a Cold War spy, tallying bouquets and comparing box sizes. Across the street, the Hendersons are at it again. Mrs. Henderson receives her annual truckload of roses delivered in full view of the block. Mr. Henderson, in his immaculate fedora, stands beaming beside a heart-shaped sign that proclaims, "To my darling forever." You can practically hear the judging from the next yard over. This is the world of suburban Valentine's Day, a pressure cooker built from white picket fences, well-manicured lawns, and binoculars for birdwatching. Every gesture is part of an elaborate ballet, performed for a critical audience of neighbours who know precisely how many stems are in a dozen, and exactly what time the florist truck arrived. You step outside under the guise of collecting the morning paper, only to discover that Mr. Wilson has already beaten you to the punch. He's standing at the curb with a life-size teddy bear and a card the size of a pillowcase. He waves with just enough smugness to remind you that last year you only managed carnations. You wave back, silently promising yourself that next year it will be lilies, maybe even orchids, or a singing telegram, or a skywriter. At the corner, a knot of neighbourhood children are huddled around the mailbox, giggling over who got the most Valentines at school. Their laughter carries on the breeze, as does the unmistakable sound of Mrs. O'Leary, who's already telling everyone that her daughter's boyfriend sent her a bracelet from the big city. The Joneses, not to be outdone, have arranged for a string quartet to perform in the driveway. You're not sure if it's romantic or just a really elaborate way to drown out the sound of marital bickering. Inside, you sense the silent appraisal of your own household. Your spouse stands at the window watching the parade of floral deliveries and candy boxes with a look that's half amusement, half calculation. "Did you see what the Millers got?" they ask casually. It's nice to know some people still appreciate a thoughtful gesture. You know exactly what this means. The scoreboard is open, and you're trailing by at least a box of chocolates and one meaningful poem. You retreat to the kitchen, where the phone rings with the first friendly check-in of the day, your mother-in-law, who would like to remind you that real men still bring flowers. She recounts, in painful detail, how your father-in-law once hand-carved a wooden heart, which the family now uses as a doorstop, but remains in her mind the pinnacle of romance. The afternoon brings a new round of deliveries. The air is thick with anticipation and pollen. Every ring of the doorbell is an opportunity to score points or lose ground. You accept a small package with a practiced air of surprise, even though you saw the delivery schedule in the window of the florist last week. You make sure the neighbours see the transaction. After all, what's the point of a romantic gesture if it isn't witnessed by at least 3 households and possibly the mailman? As evening falls, porch lights flicker on, and the street becomes a gallery of gifts, cards, and affectionate displays. You share a quiet dinner, both aware that love in the suburbs is never just between 2 people. It's an ongoing performance, a communal spectacle, a series of tiny acts, all carefully choreographed under the gaze of 100 half-closed curtains. You finally close your own curtains, lower the lights, and decide that, in the end, the only score that matters is the smile across the table. But tomorrow you'll be ready, because in the game of suburban romance there's always next year's rematch. At work, the office manager circulates a box of generic Valentines for Marital. You're expected to sign them all, just in case missing Mildred in accounting triggers a small HR apocalypse. There's something about Valentine's Day in the 1950s office that feels like a mandatory pop quiz, one you never studied for and can't pass without risking social exile. The box is pastel pink, decorated with cupids so aggressively cheerful they seem to dare you to be the one person who doesn't participate. "Just jot your name on a few," the manager chirps. "We don't want anyone feeling left out." You know what that means. You will be spending your lunch break writing best wishes on cards for people you only interact with when the copy machine jams. The office is awash in the smells of cheap candy, pencil shavings, and the slightly burnt tang of reheated coffee. Every desk sports a small paper heart taped to the monitor, some of them decorated with more effort than most of the annual budget proposals. You spot a heart-shaped box of chocolates in the break room, already missing the good ones, and a tray of cookies that have fused together into one giant pink and red blob. You grab a coffee and attempt to navigate the treacherous terrain of the open-plan workspace. Valentine's Day. Etiquette here is as delicate ballet. Give too many cards, you're labelled the office flirt. Too few, and you're the cold fish they'll gossip about until Labour Day. There's a running tally. Did you give Bob in sales the Your Tops card, or did you accidentally hand him the one that says, "You make my heart hop"? Either way, someone's going to read into it. You make your way through the sign and go gauntlet, swapping pleasantries with people whose job descriptions you only vaguely understand. There's Mildred from accounting, whose collection of ceramic frog valentines rivals the company's assets. You remember the story of the intern who forgot to sign her card last year. He's now known exclusively as the Valentine incident. Somewhere, the HR manual has a paragraph about inclusive appreciation that might as well be titled "Don't Forget Mildred." As you hand out cards, you witness the subtle bartering and diplomacy of office romance. A supervisor leaves an anonymous rose on the secretary's desk, leading to 30 minutes of speculation, 2 side bets, and 1 hastily convened meeting on appropriate workplace decorum. There's a rumour that someone from HR received a box of chocolates with a mysterious lipstick print on the tag. The supply closet, you note, is busier than usual. By noon, sugar is coursing through the collective bloodstream. Productivity dips as people debate the merits of conversation hearts versus heart-shaped lollipops. You overhear someone in payroll theorising that pink M&Ms are a sign of management's favouritism. The office manager attempts to rally the troops with a speech about teamwork, togetherness, and how love, like quarterly earnings, requires careful planning. The afternoon brings the annual Guess Who Sent the Secret Valentine game, a tradition that causes more confusion than Cupid himself. Anonymous cards appear on desks, initials are decoded, handwriting analysed. At least 3 people believe they've found their secret admirer. By 3 p.m, all 3 realise it's the office manager, keeping spirits up and lawsuits down. You retreat to your cubicle, nibbling on a waxy chocolate and contemplating the strange rituals of office life. Valentine's Day here is a minefield. One wrong step and you're either a legend or a cautionary tale in next year's onboarding packet. As the workday ends, you sweep stray wrappers into the trash and hope you didn't accidentally profess your undying affection to the mailroom clerk via cartoon bear. You survived another day of corporate camaraderie, social landmines, and chocolate-induced regret. In the 1950s office, love is just another line item on the agenda. And like most things at work, success depends less on grand gestures and more on making sure everyone gets a card. Even Mildred. Back at your desk, you leaf through Life magazine. The ads are relentless. Jewellery, soap, even cigarettes now romantically filtered for her pleasure. You're pretty sure Cupid just joined your sales team. The glossy pages seem to shimmer with possibility and low-level panic. Every spread is a lovingly orchestrated ambush. As if a battalion of advertisers has breached your living room, waving banners printed with hearts, diamonds, and the smiling faces of people who look much happier than anyone you've ever seen at a real Valentine's dinner. This is the 1950s, and Madison Avenue's new motto is, if you loved her, you'd buy this and probably this, and also the companion set. You flip to a perfume ad. A glamorous woman leans dreamily against a bottle larger than her own torso. The caption whispers, "Capture her heart in a scent." You wonder if she can actually breathe in there, or if she's just fainted from the price tag. Next comes a page of watches, each ticking loudly with the reminder that you're running out of time to prove your affection. Show her she matters every second, urges the headline. You consider buying a sundial and writing your own slogan. Love is timeless, batteries not included, jewellery is everywhere. A diamond is forever, proclaims the De Beers ad, complete with a 4-page fold-out of rings that look like they require their own insurance policies. The message is clear. True love can be measured in carats, and anything less is basically admitting you're just roommates. You check your wallet and hope no one ever invents the Valentine's Day layaway plan. It isn't just the luxury items. Soap, too, has gone romantic. Ivory wants you to know that pure love deserves pure soap. A smiling couple bathes in side-by-side tubs, gazing adoringly at each other across a sea of bubbles, as if nothing says passion quite like a double-rinse cycle. Even the toothpaste has gotten in on the act. Make your kiss a Valentine's wish. Beams the ad, next to a diagram that looks suspiciously like a dental hygiene warning. Then there's the cigarettes, filter-tipped for romance. A couple, impossibly elegant, share a single cigarette with the kind of longing glance that only happens when a copywriter gets paid by the swoon. You have your doubts about the health claims, but you do admit the box looks pretty sharp in pink. The fine print promises flavour you can feel. You wonder if that flavour is regret. You flip another page, only to find a new threat. Household appliances, now rebranded as tokens of affection. Show her she's the queen of your castle, with the new dream bake oven, the headline declares, above a cartoon of a housewife hugging a range. It's not clear if she's thrilled about the oven or just relieved someone finally noticed she wanted one. Radio jingles waft in from the front office. For the girl who deserves the best, give her lustrous hairspray and forget the rest. You imagine Cupid, wings slightly singed by neon, working overtime as Madison Avenue's unpaid intern, slipping subliminal messages between soap operas and baseball games. Every commercial break is a gentle threat. Buy now, or sleep alone in a house that doesn't even smell like roses. By the time you reach the back page, you're convinced that your entire romantic destiny depends on your ability to memorize catchphrases and sign up for a 12-month payment plan. The ads aren't just selling products, they're selling the idea that love can be boxed, bagged and billed in monthly installments. You close the magazine feeling slightly dizzy and more than a little behind. In 1950s America, romance has become a business, and Madison Avenue holds the ledger. But deep down, no ad can sell the real thing. Still, it never hurts to clip a coupon just in case. The evening plan is romantic dinner for two, which, thanks to Swanson, means matching TV trays and a microwaved memory of what chicken once tasted like. According to the commercial, this is peak marital bliss. You set the scene. Lights dimmed just enough to make the peas look more mysterious. TV trays angled precisely to avoid the worst glare from the screen. Swanson's finest awaits. Encased in its signature aluminum tray, a rectangle of hope, a promise of effortless romance. The box says chicken dinner, but by now, the true identity of the meat is a secret closely guarded by the Swanson family and perhaps a team of government scientists. You and your spouse settle into your respective armchairs, cutlery poised, ready to dig in. The vegetables glisten under a patina of melted butter substitute, while the mashed potatoes maintain their shape with architectural defiance. You exchange a look. Is this the high point of 1950s love, or just another stop on the slow train to convenience food-induced ennui? The television crackles to life with a familiar jingle. Nothing says love like Swanson above. You both try to believe it, spearing a cube of Salisbury steak with the cautious optimism reserved for culinary experiments and garage sales. You attempt to recall a time when romantic dinner meant candlelight, home-cooked food, or at least a restaurant with waiters. Now, love is plated in 3 sections and comes with a side of freezer burn. But in the 1950s, the TV dinner is a marvel of modern living. Swanson's ad men have decreed it. Nothing is more intimate than eating matching entrees while watching I Love Lucy. You raise your fork to the future, an era of instant meals and relationships maintained on a schedule. Each bite is a tribute to the wonders of science and the questionable wisdom of trusting romance to a heating coil. Your spouse makes polite conversation. The carrots taste a range. You agree, pretending not to notice that they taste mostly of salt and nostalgia. The commercial break promises no mess, no stress, which is technically true if you don't count the growing pile of foil and the existential dread that accompanies the phrase processed cheese food. As the show continues, the narrator's voice on the TV promises a night to remember. You both suppress laughter, imagining future archaeologists puzzling over fossilized peas and wondering what ancient rituals required the consumption of creamed turkey surprise. Still, there's comfort in the routine. 2 trays, 1 screen, 0 expectations. You both know the dinner won't be memorable, but sometimes that's the point. Dessert arrives in the form of a bonus brownie, pre-installed in its own compartment and sporting a skin so tough it could withstand re-entry. You take a bite, hoping for sweetness, but receiving only the vague taste of cocoa and the knowledge that you will definitely need a glass of milk. Your spouse tries the apple cobbler, which is less cobbler and more apple-adjacent syrup with dreams of crust. Yet as you lean back, balancing your tray on your knees, you realize that despite the meal's shortcomings, this is oddly soothing. No pressure, no need to impress, just 2 people sharing a meal and laughing at commercials that promise to solve every romantic problem with just 1 more product. When the show ends and the trays are stacked in the sink, you both agree to try real cooking next time. But deep down you know the TV dinner will make a comeback. It's always waiting in the freezer for the next hectic night or failed recipe. In the grand tradition of 1950s romance, sometimes the most loving thing you can do is keep each other company through the mystery meat and reruns. You toast with your milk glasses, grateful for convenience, for laughter, and for the knowledge that true marital bliss is measured not in gourmet meals, but in shared moments, however frozen, foil-wrapped, or faintly chicken-like they may be. Buying lingerie in the 1950s is like attempting a bank heist in broad daylight, full of risk, shame, and the certainty you're about to get it wildly wrong. The department store's perfume counter has never smelled more like fear. You stand outside the lingerie section, shifting your weight and scanning for exits. Your heart thuds with a mixture of curiosity, embarrassment, and a little too much morning coffee. Somewhere in the racks, a sales lady stands guard, her smile both reassuring and faintly predatory, as if she's caught you shoplifting a secret. The mannequins glare in their stiff, satin perfection, daring you to make eye contact with their tiny embroidered bras. You suddenly become deeply interested in the architecture of a nearby hat display. You rehearse your opening line. "I'm just browsing," you'll say. Or maybe, It's for my wife. As if anyone is buying frilly underthings for themselves. The sales lady appears, all business, and asks, "Are you looking for something special?" You swallow. "Something classic," you say, trying to project confidence, not the kind of desperation that lands you on an FBI watch list. Around you, the world slows to a crawl. Pink slips, pale blue nightgowns, and mysterious items labelled foundation garments hang like booby traps. Touch the wrong thing, and a stack of boxes could collapse, triggering a price check over the intercom and a polite round of applause from the perfume counter. The overhead lights buzz, the cash register dings, and your cheeks burn with the knowledge that everyone in a 30-foot radius is in on the joke. This isn't a store, it's a gauntlet of self-consciousness. Sizing becomes the next hurdle. You try to remember what you're looking for. What's her size? Has it changed? You didn't exactly take notes the last time you did laundry. There's a tape measure draped casually over the display, a tool as foreign to you as a slide rule. You imagine the conversation at home. "Surprise, honey," I guessed. No matter what you choose, it will be too big, too small, too pink, too matronly, or just not me. The risk is infinite. The reward, statistically, is disappointment and a polite, if strained, thank you. You find yourself drawn to the safe items, cotton pajamas, bathrobes, anything labelled practical. But the ads on the wall urge you toward bolder choices. This Valentine's, show her she's your pin-up queen. Next to a photograph of a grinning couple, she radiant in lace, he looking like he just solved cold fusion. You feel the gap between advertising and reality stretch wider than the elastic on a girdle. A couple aisles over, another brave soul is also attempting the lingerie run. You exchange a glance, a brief silent bond between men who would rather be anywhere else. He grabs a slip at random and flees. You, more cautious, double-check your selection. Not too racy, not too bland, nothing with feathers. You bring it to the counter, trying to act like you do this all the time, when in reality your face is the colour of a Valentine's heart. The sales lady wraps your purchase in enough tissue paper to mummify a small dog. "Would you like a gift box?" she asks, and you nod, grateful for anything that adds distance between you and the awkward reality of your chosen gift. You escape to the street, clutching the bag like evidence. At home, you present the package, a bundle of hope and potential disaster. Your spouse opens it, laughs, and gives you a kiss, because in the end, it's the gesture that matters. You both know that the world of 1950s romance is full of impossible expectations, but sometimes the best kind of love is the one that lets you laugh together at the absurdity of it all. Even if your salary says modest, the jewellery store window suggests otherwise. Ads claim diamonds are forever. Your bank account tragically is not. Each ring comes with a side of existential dread. You pause outside the jewellery shop, eyes drawn to the display like a moth to a flickering, overpriced flame. Velvet stands prop up glittering rings under lights so bright they could guide ships home in a fog. Gold watches, pearl earrings, and brooches shaped like improbable flowers shimmer, all whispering in unison. Love has a price tag, and it's just out of reach. You press your nose to the glass, weighing your affections against your credit limit. Inside, salespeople circle, hungry for commission and the faintest whiff of vulnerability. Stepping inside, you're greeted by a bell that announces your intentions louder than any confession. The floor is polished to a mirror shine, every step echoing with the question, how much is enough? A sales associate glides over, all smiles and predatory politeness, ready to size you up, emotionally and financially. Shopping for that special someone, she purrs. Looking for something classic, or are we feeling adventurous this Valentine's? You mumble something about timeless elegance and are immediately steered toward the diamond case, a shimmering galaxy of pressure, expectation, and marketing. The famous slogan is plastered everywhere, "A diamond is forever." You can almost hear your wallet whimper. The rings sparkle, winking knowingly. The price tags glare back, unapologetic. You consider faking a sudden allergy to precious metals. The sales pitch begins. Did you know diamonds are not just a symbol of love, but an investment in your future, she says, opening a tray of engagement rings that cost more than your first car. She tells you about cut, clarity, colour and carat, 4 words that somehow combine to equal 5 months of your salary. You nod, trying to look like you understand, though the last time you bought anything with this many specs was a toaster. You glance at the affordable options, rings with gems so tiny they could double as punctuation marks. The ad copy above them reads, "True love doesn't measure in carats," which you suspect was written by someone who's never received a ring smaller than a lentil. You contemplate the pearl necklace. Elegant, but does it say lifelong devotion or just, "I forgot until the last minute and panicked"? Meanwhile, a couple next to you are deep in negotiation. She stares longingly at a tennis bracelet. He stares longingly at the exit. The sales associate hands her a mirror, and you realise there are more ways to look nervous than you ever imagined. In the back, an older gentleman pays cash for a tiny heart-shaped locket, a move so smooth it briefly restores your faith in humanity, and raises the bar impossibly high. You try on your bravest face and ask the price of a modest ring. The number comes out as a whisper, like a secret only you and your future self's credit score will ever know. You do some quick calculations. If you switch to bologna sandwiches for the next year, you might just be able to pull it off. You finally make your selection. A simple gold band with a small diamond. It's beautiful, understated, and only slightly traumatizing. The ring is boxed with reverence and tucked into a bag that radiates equal parts pride and financial vertigo. As you leave, the bell chimes again, sending you back into the cold reality of the street. At home, you present the tiny velvet box, heart pounding. Your spouse's eyes light up, and for a moment you remember why people keep falling for this whole ridiculous, dazzling ritual. You both laugh at the extravagance and the expense, because in the end, love isn't about the price or the sparkle. It's about daring to walk into a jewelry store, face your existential dread, and try anyway. Your kids bring home shoeboxes stuffed with paper hearts. Suddenly you're helping them craft the perfect Valentine for a classmate named Susan, whose father definitely owns a boat. The stakes are impossibly high. The shoeboxes are decorated with pipe cleaners, doilies, and more glitter than a Broadway finale. Each one is a pastel-streaked shrine to social anxiety. You sift through the hall with your child, pretending not to notice that one classmate gave out full-size candy bars, while you, foolishly, opted for discount lollipops and cards that say things like, "You're swell," in outdated fonts. Now you're in the hot seat. Your kid needs to respond to Susan's Valentine, and it can't be average. Susan is, after all, the queen bee of Miss Bartlett's second-grade class. She has perfect pigtails, a Barbie dream house, and rumours of a family cabin cruiser. You've seen the way the other kids hover near her, offering cinnamon hearts like tribute in a candy-coated Hunger Games. You open the craft drawer with a sense of dread. You're down to your last 3 sheets of construction paper and half a glue stick that's mysteriously fuzzy. The markers are dry, the glitter is somehow wet, and the safety scissors are neither safe nor effective. Still, your child looks up at you like a miniature CEO expecting results. It needs to be special, they say, already disappointed in your paper folding technique. You try a heart shape, but it comes out looking more like a diseased apple. "Maybe we can write a poem," you offer. This is met with a dramatic sigh. Susan likes poems, but not ones that rhyme too much. You wonder briefly if you're ghostwriting for a Valentine-themed literary journal. You attempt a message. "Dear Susan, I like your pencil case. Not good enough. Dear Susan, I hope you have a fun Valentine's Day. Too bland. Dear Susan, my mum helped me write this and now she's panicking. Too honest." Eventually you settle on something heartfelt and vague. "Susan, you are very unique. You leave it to interpretation. It's safer that way." Meanwhile, your younger child is eating glue and decorating a Valentine for the family cat. You feel like this is closer to your emotional level. The living room looks like a craft store exploded. There's a red construction paper footprint on the ceiling. No one knows how it got there. You've abandoned the idea of controlling the mess and are now simply trying to survive the experience with minimal emotional damage. Back at school, the exchange is a battlefield. Your kid clutches their homemade card like a love letter to the gods. Parents hover near classroom doors, pretending they're just dropping something off, but really checking the balance of power in this tiny cardboard society. Susan receives 17 cards. 2 have stickers, 1 has a hand-drawn unicorn. Yours is handed over with quiet reverence, and the kind of hope usually reserved for lottery tickets and weather forecasts. At pickup, your kid climbs into the car with the dazed expression of someone who's just run a psychological marathon. Susan said mine was nice, they report. You exhale. Nice is neither a rejection nor a restraining order. You'll take it. A win, by Valentine standards. Later that evening, you peel heart stickers off the furniture and reflect on the sheer emotional complexity of a second-grade Valentine exchange. It's not about romance. It's about navigating the minefield of childhood popularity, peer expectations, and the intense desire not to be the only one who used last year's leftover cards with the dog that says "positively yours." In the end, the shoeboxes are sealed, the candy rationed, and the living room returns to its usual chaos. You pour yourself a drink and toast to surviving another year of tiny notes with giant pressure. Because if love is complicated, elementary school love is practically operatic and no one escapes glitter-free. The DJ's voice oozes sincerity as he dedicates a song to all the sweethearts listening tonight. You're swept up in a tide of crooners, doo-wop, and the creeping suspicion that every lyric is a personal attack. You didn't ask to be emotionally dismantled by the platters at 7:45 p.m, but here you are, clutching a lukewarm cup of Sanka while only you plays like it knows all your secrets. Outside, the February wind howls against the windows. Inside, the radio croons on, drowning the room in velvet harmonies and passive-aggressive nostalgia. The DJ, Lenny the Lovebug, speaks in a voice so smooth it might be butter-based. This next one, he whispers like he's in your closet, goes out to Carol in Peoria from an admirer who says, "I'll never forget the time we shared that umbrella in the rain." You don't know Carol. You've never been to Peoria. And yet you suddenly feel guilty about every umbrella you've ever misused. You reach for the dial, but it's too late. The next tune hits, Earth Angel, and the emotional blackmail begins anew. The lyrics aren't just romantic, they're judgmental. "Will you be mine?" they ask. You stare at your reflection in the window, questioning your life choices, your sock drawer, and the adequacy of your Valentine's Day efforts. Your spouse walks into the room, hears the music, and smirks. "Somebody's feeling sentimental," they say. You laugh, nervously. "Just background noise," you reply, while secretly wondering if Perry Como thinks your card was sincere enough. The radio makes you feel things you're not ready to discuss, especially not with someone who saw what you gave them for breakfast. It's not just the songs, it's the dedications. They come in fast and syrupy. To Dolores from your teddy bear in Toledo. To Jimmy from someone who's been waiting all year. To my wife of 22 years, thank you for sticking with me through 2 kids, 3 moves, and 1 unfortunate lasagna incident. You try to remember if you submitted a dedication. You didn't, should you have? You consider phoning one in. But it's the 1950s, and landlines are communal shame delivery systems. The operator already knows too much. You listen as Lenny the Lovebug takes a call live on air. It's a nervous teenage boy requesting Unchained Melody for a girl named Debbie. Lenny nods solemnly, as if he's mediating Cold War negotiations. "You've got guts, kid," he says. "This one's for Debbie and for every guy who's ever handed over a mixtape and prayed. You feel seen, you feel judged, you feel like Debbie probably deserves better." The music swells again, and the pressure returns. Why don't you slow dance anymore? Should you have bought the bigger box of chocolates? Does your marriage lack sufficient doo-wop? The radio is no longer a source of entertainment. It's a mirror, one that speaks in falsetto and demands you live up to a standard set by men who never did their own laundry. You look over at your spouse, who is now reading the paper with a smile and a piece of chocolate stuck to their elbow. They didn't hear the dedication. They don't need to. You're both here, in this room, surrounded by music, sugar, and the quiet comfort of surviving another February 14th, together without a full-blown romantic incident. As the song fades, Lenny returns one last time. And if you're out there, Thinking love's passed you by, just remember, someone out there's thinking of you. Probably, maybe. Good night, lovers. The radio clicks off. You sit in silence, unsure whether to feel soothed or slightly manipulated. Because in the 1950s, romance isn't just lived, it's broadcast. One syrupy song at a time. You take your spouse out to a local diner, where every meal comes with a complimentary paper heart and a pie so pink it glows in the dark. The waitress winks, the bill arrives, romance is quantified. It's the quintessential 1950s Valentine's Day outing. Cozy vinyl booths, checkered floors, and a jukebox playing something romantic and slightly out of tune. You chose the diner because it's classic, affordable, and unlikely to require a reservation or a tie. Plus, they're running a special, heart-shaped meatloaf and a slice of loveberry pie, which sounds romantic if slightly concerning. You're seated under a paper garland of cupids, one of whom has been stuck to the ceiling with chewing gum. The table is already set with pink paper placemats that read, "Be mine in Comic Sans," before Comic Sans existed. There's a tiny vole with a single, slightly limp carnation, which leans dramatically toward your water glass like it's also had a long day. The waitress appears wearing lipstick brighter than a fire truck and a name tag that reads Dottie. She calls everyone Hon and hands you 2 menus coated in a fine layer of hope and syrup residue. "You two celebrating something special tonight?" she asks. "Just trying not to forget it again," you reply, smiling. She winks. "Smart man. You order the Valentine special because you're committed to the bit. Your spouse goes rogue and orders the heart-shaped pancakes with a side of passion fruit sausage, which turns out to be regular sausage doused in something that smells like cheap perfume and childhood mistakes. When the meatloaf arrives, it's a statement. Carefully moulded into the shape of a heart and glazed with ketchup and decorative swirls, it looks like something that might be studied in a lab. The mashed potatoes are piped into rosettes, and the peas are dyed pink. You aren't sure why. There's a small American flag stabbed into the top like you've just conquered the nation of ground beef. Your spouse laughs and takes a photo for the scrapbook you'll never make. Across the diner, other couples engage in similar acts of edible theatre. One woman receives a burger with XO written in mustard. A man 2 booths over proposes with a ring hidden in a milkshake. It is later retrieved with a spoon and some mild dental work. Dottie returns to check on you. "How's the love meat?" she asks. You give her a thumbs up and try not to think about the structural integrity of food moulded by hand. "Save room for dessert," she says ominously, and disappears behind the counter. Dessert arrives. A slice of the fabled loveberry pie, a confection so aggressively pink it radiates its own gravitational field. It shimmers, it jiggles, it defies known laws of colour. You take a bite. It tastes like strawberries, sadness, and whatever red dye number 4 was before the FDA got involved. Your spouse loves it. As you pay the bill, you notice a handwritten note at the bottom. "Thanks for sharing your love with us. Come back soon." Beneath it is a crude sketch of 2 stick figures holding hands, one suspiciously shaped like a meatloaf. You step out into the cold evening air full of food, preservatives, and the warm fuzziness that only comes from publicly sanctioned awkwardness. Your spouse threads their arm through yours, and you both laugh about the peas, the pie, the proposal 2 booths down. Because in the end, romance isn't candlelight and caviar. It's diners, ketchup hearts, and laughing at the ridiculousness of it all while trying not to spill pink gravy on your coat. In 1950s suburbia, love is wherever you're willing to find it, even under fluorescent lights and next to a jukebox that only plays the Everly Brothers. No Valentine's Day is complete without the annual visit from the in-laws, who expect flowers, chocolates, and a detailed accounting of your romantic competence. Fail, and it's discussed at every family gathering until Easter. They arrive exactly when they said they would, which is somehow worse than being late. Coats are draped neatly over the hall tree. Your father-in-law clears his throat like a man preparing to deliver an ultimatum, and your mother-in-law brings a heart-shaped bundt cake wrapped in cellophane and silent judgment. You already know it contains jello. You just don't know where. They sit on the couch as if summoned by federal mandate. purses and hats arranged like ceremonial objects. The air is thick with expectation and a hint of lilac-scented disapproval. Your spouse hands out coffee and performs small talk like a stage magician pulling compliments from thin air. You do your best to smile, nod, and avoid direct questions like, "So what did you do for Valentine's this year?" The problem isn't that they don't care, it's that they care too much. Valentine's Day, in their view, is less a holiday and more a moral exam. Romance is duty, sentiment is strategy. And you're being audited. "Did you remember the flowers this year?" your mother-in-law asks, her tone as light as arsenic. You nod. Roses. Red ones. She raises a perfectly plucked eyebrow. "Lovely. I've always said carnations are for apologies." You briefly wonder what carnations ever did to deserve that reputation, but now is not the time for botanical defence. Your father-in-law sips his coffee and leans back like a man about to deliver a speech. "You know, back in my day," he begins, and you brace for it. A gentleman saved up for weeks to buy his sweetheart a proper dinner. No shortcuts, no pre-cooked turkey slices or instant mashed potatoes. He eyes your kitchen like it might betray you at any moment. They ask for details. Did you go out? Did you dress up? Was there music? Did anyone cry, but in a good way? You start to recount the evening. The meatloaf, the glowing pie, the enthusiastic waitress named Dottie. But halfway through, you realise it sounds more like a sitcom than a declaration of eternal devotion. Your mother-in-law presses her hand to her chest. How quaint. Your spouse jumps in to rescue you, adding a glowing review of the diner's ambiance. They had a jukebox, and an exaggerated compliment about the ketchup heart presentation. Very postmodern. You nod along, grateful and humbled. Somewhere in the background, the bundt cake wobbles ominously. Then comes the gift inspection. "Oh, and what did you give each other this year?" she asks sweetly, as if she's not already picturing a points-based rubric. You reach for the small jewellery box you plan to show later, but now it feels like presenting evidence to a jury. Your spouse beams and says it was perfect, which may or may not be true, but buys you several months of plausible deniability. The in-laws exchange glances. "That's nice," they say in harmony, which is worse than open criticism. It's the kind of nice that comes with footnotes, that says, "We'll circle back to this in the family group letter." Eventually the bundt cake is sliced, compliments are exchanged with surgical precision, and they leave with promises to stop by again soon. You shut the door, exhale, and collapse onto the couch like you've just passed a surprise IRS audit, with your dignity barely intact. Because in the 1950s, Valentine's Day isn't just between you and your spouse, it's a family affair, complete with inspections, interrogations, and jello-based diplomacy. And if you think love is complicated, try proving it to someone who remembers courtship as a 3-act play with assigned seating and a chaperone. Somewhere in a drawer is the card you never sent, addressed to an old flame or maybe yourself. In the 1950s, nostalgia is as much a commodity as perfume or pearls, and missed chances weigh more than last year's fruitcake. You stumble across it while digging for stamps or that one safety pin that always disappears. It's wedged between a forgotten book of green stamps and a postcard from Niagara Falls that was never mailed. The envelope is yellowed at the edges. The handwriting is tentative, like it was written with more hope than confidence. You open it. The card inside reads, "To someone special, I should have said something." You don't remember if you bought it for someone or if someone bought it for you. You just know you never sent it. That's the thing about love in the 1950s. It's supposed to be bold, certain, and sealed with a kiss. But more often, it's quiet, hesitant, scribbled in pencil and folded away for another time that never quite arrives. You tell yourself you'll get around to it, that there's always next year, that if it was meant to be, the universe would have sent a clearer signal than a half-price card from the Rexall pharmacy clearance bin. The card is simple, no glitter, no embossed lace, just a cartoon bear holding a balloon and a caption that tries a little too hard. It's not much, but in your mind, it becomes a symbol of what could have been said, of the moment you backed out, of the person who might have smiled or cried or laughed uncomfortably and then changed the subject. You picture them. the person you didn't send it to. Maybe it was a high school crush who smelled like peppermint and wore their sweater sleeves too long, or someone from college who once lent you a pencil and accidentally stole your heart. Or maybe it's a memory even older than that, an echo from a school dance, a hallway, a moment in a kitchen when you thought, if I say something now, everything changes. And then you didn't. The 1950s are full of rules. There are courtship rituals, social expectations, and romantic scripts longer than the average Broadway play. You're supposed to say the right thing at the right time, with the right flowers and the right smile. There's no room for maybe, no margin for awkward pauses or uncertain phrasing, so when the moment slips, you let it. Because maybe they were out of your league. Maybe the timing was off. Maybe your socks didn't match. And so the card sat in a drawer. One Valentine's Day turned into two, and before you knew it, the sentiment inside started to feel like someone else wrote it. Someone younger, more foolish, a little braver and a lot more romantic, but it still stings, just a little. You could send it now, track them down, look them up in the phone book if they're even listed, but you don't, because nostalgia isn't meant to be resolved. It's meant to be felt. A gentle ache you carry tucked between old coupons and unused stamps, pulled out once a year when the radio plays a certain song and the candy aisles start to turn pink again. So you put the card back in the drawer, carefully, respectfully, like a time capsule that doesn't need to be opened. You close the drawer and return to your life, your current Valentine, your current chaos, grateful for what is, even as you honour what almost was. Because sometimes the most powerful Valentine is the one you never send. A quiet whisper from the past that reminds you were once young and foolish and brave enough to almost say something that mattered. Nothing says romance like the latest vacuum cleaner, at least according to the sales pitch. You find yourself wondering if the deluxe Spindrift blender is a metaphor, or just another cold stainless steel reminder. You stand in the appliance showroom, blinking under the fluorescent lights, surrounded by towers of gleaming chrome and promises of domestic bliss. The floor shines with waxed perfection, and the air smells faintly of ozone, coffee, and marital pressure. The salesman, who introduced himself as Buck, is halfway through his pitch on the whisper-tone dishwasher, and you're nodding like this decision might actually save your relationship. This baby's got dual rinse spray heads and a self-drying feature, Buck says with the energy of a man who believes passion starts with spotless dinnerware. Your wife's going to love this. You nod again. Because saying, actually, I was thinking of something a bit more sentimental will get you laughed out of the store. And possibly the neighbourhood. In the 1950s, love is practical, tangible, plugged into the wall and set to medium high. Advertisements assure you that nothing says, I care quite like a multi-speed mixer or a steam iron with emotional clarity. The blender isn't just for shakes, it's for showing commitment. The vacuum cleaner isn't just for dust, it's for building a future. You look down at a floor model with 17 attachments and wonder which one says, I still find you mysterious and beautiful. Buck senses your hesitation and swoops in for the kill. Let me show you the Spindrift in seafoam green. Real elegant. Looks great next to the matching electric knife set. He gestures with flourish, as if unveiling the crown jewels. You're still unsure if you're buying an appliance or attempting foreplay with a juicer. Your spouse, who initially came just to look, is now locked in a passionate staring contest with a stand mixer. It has a dough hook, they whisper, slightly breathless. You suddenly feel jealous of an inanimate object, a cold, shiny, dough-hooked rival. You realise you haven't made anyone feel this excited in weeks, and certainly not with a beta attachment. Buck moves you along to the toaster display. Great for breakfast in bed, he says with a wink. You don't have the heart to explain that your idea of breakfast in bed is dry toast and an apology. But here, in the cathedral of GE and Westinghouse, even a waffle iron is sold like a ticket to marital renewal. It's all love at 120 volts, or your money back. You try to push back. What happened to jewellery, you ask, weakly. Buck laughs. Jewellery don't whip cream. He has a point. He also has a polyester tie with tiny blenders on it. You wonder if he sleeps here, if he ever loved. You and your spouse circle the sales floor like two migratory birds trying to nest on top of a Frigidaire. You compromise on a new iron with variable steam control. Not quite a love letter, but at least it's wrapped in red ribbon and comes with a free pot holder. The salesman tosses in a sample of polish and a catalogue of other sexy appliances you can dream about together. You leave the store a little confused, a little poorer, and strangely satisfied. Because even though it's not a diamond or a poem, it's something, a shared choice, a small machine that hums along in your kitchen and says, "We're in this together. Also, please don't leave damp clothes in the basket again." In 1950s romance, love isn't always champagne and roses. Sometimes it's a blender. And in a world of pressure cookers and emotional repression, that's just about as intimate as it gets. Post-meal, you scrape plates into the new dishwasher, gifted, of course, for her convenience. It hums a gentle reminder, you could be doing more. In 1950s America, even appliances judge you. You weren't expecting the dishwasher to become the third party in your relationship, but here it is, gleaming, humming, and silently editorializing your post-dinner contributions. The box promised quiet operation, but what it actually delivers is a low mechanical sigh, like it's disappointed in your emotional availability. Your spouse puts the last fork in the rack with the force of a closing argument. It's fine, they say, when you offer to help far too late. You cooked. You did cook, technically. If preheating a frozen Salisbury steak counts as cooking. But it doesn't matter now. The dishwasher knows. The dishwasher has seen. In the 1950s, domestic labour is a battlefield wrapped in floral aprons and passive-aggressive cutlery placement. The new appliance, sleek and space-age, was meant to be a gift, a gesture, a convenience. But somehow it has become a blinking monument to your selective participation in household life. You wipe a spot on the countertop as if that will even the score. It won't. The machine churns to life. Inside, a whirling storm of soap and hot water washes away the physical remnants of dinner, while leaving behind a residue of emotional implication. The kitchen grows quiet, eerily quiet, except for the slow, rhythmic slosh of soapy water cycling through unresolved tension. You lean against the counter, watching your spouse disappear into the living room, carrying both a magazine and the weight of silent expectation. You want to say something about how modern life is overwhelming, about how you were raised by wolves and canned soup commercials, but instead you just tighten the lid on the mustard and stand there like a man slowly losing an argument to a whirlpool. Back in the showroom, the salesman had said, "This model practically saves marriages." You believed him. That was before you realised the dishwasher doesn't just clean, it keeps score. It knows who rinsed, who loaded, who wandered off halfway through because they thought the Ed Sullivan Show was starting. You try to make yourself useful. You wipe a table that's already clean. You rearrange the salt shakers. You check the water line like a plumber of feelings. The dishwasher gurgles approvingly, or maybe sarcastically. It's hard to tell. Your spouse reappears, arms crossed, not angry, just disappointed, which is worse. "Thanks for dinner," they say again, this time with the tone of someone who remembers you forgot Valentine's Day in 1951 and only sort of redeemed yourself in 53 with that vacuum. You nod solemnly. "I'll dry," you offer, immediately realising that the dishwasher also does that part now. You have nothing left. The timer dings and you open the door, greeted by a cloud of steam and a wall of gleaming plates. You pull out a wine glass and polish it with unnecessary vigour. It squeaks like a tiny accusation. Later, you both sit quietly, side by side on the couch, watching a sitcom where the husband never forgets anniversaries and the wife is always delighted by a new mop. The laughter track feels personal. The audience knows. But as the night winds down and the dishes cool, your spouse leans their head on your shoulder. The moment is small, but real, because even in a world of pastel appliances and performative domesticity, sometimes showing up, even a little late, is better than not at all. You glance toward the kitchen, where the dishwasher sits in smug silence. Tomorrow you'll unload it without being asked. Maybe, probably, at least you'll think about it. Because in 1950s romance, love isn't just handwritten cards or red roses. Sometimes it's scraping the plates without being reminded. And occasionally it's letting the dishwasher win. With the kids in bed and dishes done, you collapse in front of the TV. Every program is sponsored by a soap, a cereal, or a sense of inadequacy. Even Lassie seems disappointed in your gift selection. The room is dark except for the soft blue glow of the television screen and the occasional flicker of judgment from the dog, who somehow picked up on your romantic shortcomings. You flip through the 3 available channels, all offering slightly different variations of love, conflict, and beautifully groomed people, making better life choices than you. One network runs back-to-back soap operas, the other is mid-commercial, and the third features a woman being rescued from a burning building by a man in a suit so well fitted it defies thermodynamics. You land on a drama, something vaguely romantic and aggressively sponsored by laundry detergent. The actor on screen grips the actress by the shoulders and declares, "Darling, I'd fight 10 men and a lion for your hand." Then, as if to reinforce the point, the scene abruptly cuts to a voiceover, assuring you that bliss bubbles will keep your shirts whiter than your sins. You're not sure if this is romance or psychological warfare. Your spouse is reading a magazine next to you, barely looking up. They chuckle once, maybe at the program, maybe at something they remembered from dinner. Either way, you're too tired to ask. You glance at the screen again, now showing a glamorous couple having breakfast in bed on a balcony in Paris. You try to remember the last time you both had breakfast in bed. Was it the day you spilled coffee and lost a slice of toast behind the radiator? That might have been your peak. The next commercial starts. It's for a new kind of cigarette, now with a filter designed just for her. A woman in pearls smiles as her fictional husband lights it for her. You instinctively check your pockets for matches, even though no one here smokes. The message is clear. Real love smells faintly of tobacco and condescension. You flip the channel again. Lassie is on. She stares out from the screen with soulful eyes that seem to say, "Did you really think that toaster was enough?" You feel vaguely judged by a collie who's saved more lives in a single season than you've complimented your spouse's cooking all year. The next scene features a boy stuck in a well, which feels metaphorical. The boy represents your romantic instincts. The well represents society, or possibly your marriage. You're not sure. You eat a leftover candy heart and pretend it tastes like emotional growth. The commercial break arrives. This time it's for cornflakes, billed as the breakfast of contented couples. You glance at your spouse's bowl of bran flakes from this morning and wonder what that says about you. Then comes the next ad. A kitchen set so beautiful she'll forget you forgot the card. You stare at the screen, then at the small card you gave earlier. It said "Be mine" and had a cartoon duck on it. You are not optimistic. Still, there's something weirdly comforting about this ritual. The flickering TV, the buzz of the tube warming the room, the shared silence that's more companionable than awkward. You and your spouse are here, together, tired, full of pink pie and muted resentment. But here, Lassie saves the boy. You both sigh, relieved. Not because of the plot, but because it's late, and you're both done pretending to care. You click off the TV and head to bed, where the sheets are cold, but at least they're clean, thanks to bliss bubbles. Because in the end, the new American romance isn't found in soap operas or glamorous ads. It's found in quiet evenings, shared glances, and surviving Valentine's Day without a televised intervention. A final bleary scroll through your Rolodex reveals that the Joneses have sent a custom Valentine to every family on the block. You scribble a late-night note, hoping no one notices the ink smudge or lack of heartfelt poetry. It's nearly midnight. Your eyes are half closed. Your pen is doing that thing where it stops working if you hold it at the wrong angle. But there's no turning back now. The Joneses have struck again. This year's Valentine? A professionally printed, heart-shaped accordion-folded panorama of their smiling family, dressed in matching cable-knit sweaters, standing under a banner that says "Spreading love, not germs, happy Valentines." The envelope even had gold foil. Gold? Foil? You stare at your own stack of unsent cards. They're slightly warped from humidity and still smell faintly of the drawer you forgot them in. Most are left over from previous years. One has a raccoon in a top hat saying, "You stole my heart," which was funny once, but now feels like a cry for help. Still, something must be done. The neighborhood social ecosystem depends on it. To not reciprocate is to admit defeat, or worse, indifference. Your spouse has long since gone to bed, unaware, or perhaps conveniently unaware, of the competitive greeting card arms race erupting in your kitchen. You sit under the harsh light of a naked bulb, scribbling like a love-struck raccoon yourself. Dear Walters family, you write, then pause. What do you actually say to the Walters? Last time you spoke was at the block party in August when you accidentally insulted their potato salad. You default to the classic, wishing you all the love this Valentine's Day can bring. It's vague, cheerful, and carries the emotional depth of a soggy saltine. Perfect. You repeat the phrase 5 more times, changing only the names. Personalization is for people who didn't forget until now. Then comes the real problem. Envelopes. Some are missing. Others are sealed shut from age or melted together by a rogue candy cane you failed to remove last Christmas. You pry one open with a butter knife and pray no one notices the tear. You're now actively hiding evidence of stationary negligence. And stamps. Sweet, elusive stamps. You dig through drawers like a raccoon in heat, finally unearthing one half-peeled Santa Claus and a forever stamp featuring a bald eagle. It'll have to do. Nothing says I love you like mismatched postage and desperation. Just when you think you're done, you remember the Bakers. Of course. The Bakers. The Joneses are definitely sending the Bakers a Valentine, and the Bakers always comment on your lawn. You grab a final card, one that's supposed to be a cupcake but kind of looks like a mushroom cloud, and write, "Hope your day is sweet." You feel a wave of shame, but it's too late now. As you stagger to the mailbox in your robe and slippers, cards clutched to your chest like fragile confessions, you wonder how it came to this. Valentine's Day, a day once about roses and tenderness, now reduced to panic scribbling under societal surveillance. Somewhere, the Joneses are sipping cocoa, smug in their punctuality. Their mailbox, no doubt, already overflowing with neighbourly gratitude and store-bought admiration. You slide the cards in, each one a tiny olive branch in the Cold War of suburban sentiment. They thud softly into the metal abyss. Done. You return to the house victorious, if emotionally depleted. A small price to pay to remain socially solvent on this block. Because in the 1950s, love isn't just an emotion, it's an expectation. A choreographed dance of cards, casseroles, and perfectly worded greetings. And the Joneses, they're always one foiled envelope ahead. As you slip into bed, you mentally balance the day's budget. Flowers, chocolates, awkward apologies, and the mysterious dent in your checking account. You're not sure you won Valentine's Day, but at least you survived. The sheets are slightly cold. The pillow smells vaguely of your spouse's hair product. And your back still hurts from the time you tried to reach for that hidden box of chocolates on the top shelf at the grocery store. You settle into the mattress like a man who has just completed a romantic triathlon. Card writing, dinner logistics, and emotional damage control. Your spouse is already dozing next to you, breathing softly, a contented sigh escaping every so often like they've finally escaped the Hallmark vortex. You, on the other hand, are still counting. Not sheep, but receipts. A bouquet from the gas station, $12.99, a heart-shaped meatloaf that gave you heart-shaped indigestion, $8.75, a last-minute card that barely fit in the envelope, $3.50, and an unexpected taxi fare after the car battery died in front of the diner. Priceless. You stare at the ceiling and try to determine whether your efforts landed. Did the roses cancel out the late arrival? Did the pie distract from the fact that you forgot to pick up the dry cleaning? Did the waffle iron really scream everlasting devotion, or just I was panicking in aisle 5? There's no official scoreboard, but you suspect the emotional math goes something like this. Plus 5 points for effort, -2 for lateness, +3 for originality, heart-shaped anything, -1 for calling your mother-in-law ma'am again, and +2 for remembering to say I love you before the meatloaf. You land somewhere just above neutral. Not enough to win a trophy, but probably enough to avoid a cold shoulder. It's the 1950s after all. Love isn't performative, it's implied, budgeted, and delivered with a receipt. You wonder what Valentine's Day is like in other houses. Are the Joneses lying in bed smugly surrounded by ribbon scraps and glowing compliments? Did the bakers hand-feed each other strawberries by candlelight while discussing mutual goals? Or are they, like you, staring at the ceiling, unsure whether a pink coupon for a free back massage counts as intimacy or bartering? Your spouse rolls over, mumbles something unintelligible, and tucks their hand into yours. It's warm, familiar, no frills, just presence. And maybe that's the real prize, beneath the commercialism, beneath the emotional accounting, beneath the performative affection and pastel overload. You showed up. They showed up. You navigated a maze of social cues, neon pink expectations, and gelatin-based dinner specials and made it out alive. Tomorrow, the world goes back to normal. The red decorations will quietly disappear from store windows. Radio DJs will stop speaking in sultry whispers. The candy aisle will pivot to Easter, and you'll go back to being two people who occasionally forget to buy milk and argue about thermostats. But for now, you rest, knowing that somewhere between the appliance showroom and the lopsided bouquet, you found something that vaguely resembled love, or at least the determined pursuit of it. You close your eyes. The pillow feels softer now. The day's noise fades into the hum of the heater. And just before you drift off, you think, next year, I'll plan ahead. Maybe get the nice wrapping paper. Maybe write the card a day early. Then again, probably not. Because in the end, love in the 1950s isn't perfect. It's practical, improvised, and sometimes quietly triumphant, snoring softly beside you, under the blanket you both pretend isn't too short. Sleep arrives finally, but in your dreams, you're chased by anthropomorphic greeting cards, heart-shaped vacuums, and a choir of ad executives chanting, "Bye, bye, bye." It's almost soothing. Your subconscious has clearly been hijacked by Madison Avenue. You're standing in the middle of a candy aisle that never ends. Boxes of chocolate leer at you from the shelves, each with eyes and lips and suspiciously judgmental eyebrows. One of them whispers, "You should have gone with the deluxe box." You try to run, but the linoleum beneath your feet turns into a conveyor belt of price tags, pulling you deeper into an infinite shopping mall where the floor plan was designed by someone with a grudge and a fondness for psychological torment. Around the corner, a giant toaster emerges, 7 feet tall, glinting like chrome vengeance. It's holding hands with a bouquet of roses that drips glitter and passive aggression. "You forgot again," the roses say in unison, and you do what any rational person would do in a stress dream. You hide behind a display of anniversary-themed mops. Then come the jingles. From overhead speakers, you hear crooners singing haunting doo-wop harmonies about razor blades, pantyhose, and romantic dish soap. Each chorus loops with just enough variation to be untraceable but maddening. "She'll never leave if your plates are clean," they croon, backed by a saxophone made of coupons. You nod. It makes sense. Everything makes sense here. That's the worst part. A commercial break cuts through the dreamscape, black and white, scratchy, with a smiling woman holding up a vacuum while a narrator announces, "This Valentine's Day, show her you care," with suction. You scream, but only glitter comes out. Your subconscious has been thoroughly compromised. Love in this dream is always sponsored. Affection has a jingle. Intimacy has a tagline. You receive a love letter, but when you open it, it just says, "Buy more," in cursive. You stumble into a dream cafeteria where people line up to be judged by a panel of marketing executives wearing suits made of ribbon. They assign scores based on how many cards you sent, how many romantic gestures you performed, and whether your dinner included at least one item shaped like an organ. You don't make it past round 1. Next to you, a version of yourself from the future is flipping through a catalogue titled Valentine's, 1972 edition. It features solid gold fondue pots, love-themed humidifiers, and a machine that plays compliments on demand, though most of them are just things like, "You're fine," and "At least you tried." You feel oddly comforted. Then, for just a moment, the dream shifts. You're at home again. Your spouse is there. The lights are low, the dishes are done, and there's a quiet kind of peace. No jingles, no ribbons, just the hum of the refrigerator and the soft shared breath of people who tried. You hand over a wrinkled card you forgot to give earlier. They smile. Not the ad smile. The real one. The tired one. The one that says, "We're still here." But just as the dream begins to warm, a final image looms. A billboard, massive and blinking in the night sky. It reads, "Valentine's Day never ends. It just waits." You wake with a start. Your heart's racing. The room is dark, quiet, safe, mostly. You roll over, check the clock, and sigh. It's 3:17 a.m., and you've just had a full-scale psychological ad campaign in your sleep. You reach for the glass of water on your nightstand and try to remember if love has always been this complicated. Because in the 1950s, and maybe even now, romance doesn't rest. It lingers. In your mailbox, in your dinner, in your dreams. And in your dreams, the ad men are always watching. The sun rises. Over black coffee and slightly stale donuts, you and your spouse review the previous day's romantic performance like Olympic judges. Maybe next year we'll just go for a walk, you both say. You don't believe it for a second, because you've said that before, last year, and the year before that. It always starts the same, a vow to simplify, to resist the greeting card industrial complex, to take the romance back to its roots. Something about connecting more deeply and skipping the stress. And yet here you are again, surrounded by a crumpled heart-shaped napkin, a leftover coupon for fondue, and the kind of stomachache only pink candy can inflict. Your spouse lifts their mug and squints. So, the meatloaf was festive. You nod. That's one way to describe a ground beef sculpture vaguely resembling a cardiovascular diagram. You sip your coffee, which is somehow both burnt and cold, and offer your own gentle critique. The pink pie glowed in the dark. Your spouse grins. Romantic in a Chernobyl sort of way. You both laugh, because what else is there to do? Valentine's Day is over, and now it's time for the post-game analysis. The roses were slightly wilted. The vacuum was a vacuum. The card rhymed true with you for the 4th year in a row, but nobody cried, nobody slammed a door, and nobody accidentally set anything on fire with the dinner candles. By 1950s suburban standards, that's a win. There's something oddly comforting about this ritual. The debrief, the acknowledgement of the absurdity. It softens the blow of unmet expectations and uneven effort. Because let's be honest, in the whirlwind of heart-shaped packaging and passive-aggressive dinner specials, the real achievement is surviving without needing a second round of aspirin. Your spouse opens the newspaper. You reach for another donut even though it tastes like sugar and surrender. "Remember when we used to make mixtapes?" they ask, thumbing through the headlines. You smile. Remember when people thought mixtapes were romantic and not just evidence? There's a long pause. Then your spouse says it again. Quietly this time. Next year, just a walk. You look out the window. The neighbour's Valentine's wreath is still hanging, slowly sagging in the morning sun. Across the street, the Joneses are already setting up pink lawn flamingos for reasons no one understands. A walk, you agree. A long one, maybe into the woods, but you both know the truth. Next year it will happen all over again. Because it always starts with good intentions. A simple dinner, maybe a handwritten note, but then the catalogues arrive, and the radio ads, and the pressure. The well-meaning co-workers who ask, "What are you two doing for Valentine's?" with eyes like radar dishes. The checkout clerk who throws in a free-foil balloon just in case. And slowly, surely, the walk turns into a dinner, turns into a gift, turns into a deeply symbolic kitchen appliance. But that's okay, because you've learned to navigate it together, with humour, compromise, and the occasional chocolate bribe. You've built a love that doesn't need ribbon to prove itself, one that exists somewhere between burnt toast and whispered apologies, between meatloaf catastrophes and perfectly timed sarcastic glances. You glance over at your spouse again, hair a little messy, robe slightly crooked, donut crumbs clinging to a lip. They look up and smirk. "Still married?" they ask. You grin. For now. Because in the end, Valentine's Day in the 1950s isn't about getting it perfect. It's about getting through it, together. With a little less grace than the movies, but a lot more honesty. And maybe, just maybe, next year, you'll actually take that walk. But probably not. Absolutely! Here's the full 600-word segment for the Midnight Card Hunt. Aisles, anxiety, and last-minute salvation, continuing from your opening paragraph and staying true to the immersive, absurdly comedic, and gently desperate tone of the rest of the script. It's 11:58 p.m. and you're sprinting down fluorescent-lit aisles, heart pounding louder than the Muzak version of Unchained Melody. Somewhere between discounted cough syrup and the world's saddest teddy bear, you pray you'll find one remaining Valentine that isn't bent, sticky, or addressed to whom it may concern. The store smells like fear and lemon cleaner. The lights are just a little too bright, exposing every wrinkle of shame on your face as you speedwalk past shelves of half-price peanut brittle and expired nasal spray. You weren't supposed to be this person. You had a plan. You were going to get the card early this year, but somehow early became later, and later became, oh no, what day is it? You reach the card aisle and skid to a halt like a cartoon character teetering over a cliff. What greets you is the romantic apocalypse. A battlefield of empty slots, torn envelopes, and one greeting card display spinning lazily, as if mocking your panic. You dig. Your fingers fly through the wreckage, hoping for something, anything, that doesn't feature a wet-eyed raccoon, a smudged pun, or a vaguely threatening font. One card reads, "To my dentist, on this special day." Another has a cartoon chili pepper saying, "You're spicy," with sauce stains you'd rather not think about. You spot movement. Another desperate soul, also red-faced and breathless, emerges from the other end of the aisle. You exchange a look. It is not camaraderie. It is war. He makes a lunge for the display rack and you pivot, intercepting a slightly crumpled envelope with a heart-shaped seal. You both freeze. Your hand lands on it first. It's yours. You don't look back. You retreat to the pharmacy section, hands shaking as you open your prize. The front reads, "For the one I tolerate most." Inside, "Love you anyway." It's not perfect. It's not even good. But at least it doesn't feature a raccoon. You grab a pen from the front counter, a pen on a chain, which is fitting because this is now your prison, and scrawl something vaguely affectionate inside. Your handwriting looks like a doctor's prescription for guilt, but it'll do. It has to. There's no time for metaphors or proper punctuation. You slap the envelope closed and head toward checkout. The cashier barely glances at you. She's seen it all before. Men with wild eyes and floral shirts, women in curlers clutching off-brand chocolates, teenagers holding a single rose like a hostage situation. She scans the card, gives you a knowing smirk, and drops it in a thin plastic bag like a surgical glove covering a wound. You exit into the cold, the card safely tucked under your arm like a stolen artifact. The street is empty. The sky's black. The only light comes from a flickering street lamp and the faint glow of your own shame. Back home, you slide the card onto the kitchen table like it was there all along, whistling casually to no one in particular. Your spouse won't see it until morning. You'll act like it was intentional, like the timing was part of the romance, like you wanted it to be the first thing they saw over breakfast, and maybe it will work. Maybe they'll smile, roll their eyes, and remember that you're better at showing up eventually than planning ahead. Maybe the card, imperfect as it is, will still do its job, say something you struggle to say with words. Because in the end, Valentine's Day isn't always flowers and fireworks. Sometimes it's fluorescent lights, cold sweat, and a card that says just enough to get you to next year. And maybe next time you'll plan ahead. You won't. You spend an hour stringing up pink streamers and taping paper cupids to every available surface. By midnight, half have fallen. One is dangling upside down from the chandelier, and you realize you've created a haunted house of romantic expectations, one draft away from disaster. The dining room looks like a heart-shaped explosion went off. Tissue paper confetti clings to the curtains. A crepe paper garland is sagging dramatically over the mirror like it just got dumped. The table centerpiece, intended to be a tasteful arrangement of carnations and faux pearls, now looks like the aftermath of a very emotional craft fair. You take a step back, hands on hips, surveying the damage. The cupids are the worst part. Mass-produced and lifeless. Their vacant stares follow you from every corner of the room like dollar store surveillance. Each one holds a plastic bow and arrow, aimed somewhere vaguely in your direction, as if to say, "Nice try, Romeo." But she knows this was on sale. The ceiling fan is spinning lazily, creating a gentle breeze that has turned your decorations into airborne threats. Streamers sway ominously. One cupid flutters to the floor like a romantic casualty. You pick him up and retape him to the door, only to watch him sag again seconds later. It's like trying to redecorate a collapsing tent in the middle of a wind tunnel, and yet you keep going. Because somewhere deep in the suburban heart of the 1950s, holiday decor is not optional. It's an obligation, a symbol, a loud, flammable way to say, "I tried." And in this era of appearance-driven affection, trying is everything. You remember the magazine spread that inspired this disaster, a picture-perfect couple smiling beneath a gently lit archway of pink doves and strategically placed tea lights. The caption read, "Transform your home into a Valentine's paradise." What it didn't say was, "Use industrial-strength tape or prepare to be mocked by your own walls." You thought this would impress your spouse, maybe create a little ambience, a little whimsy, something memorable. But now the only ambience is mild anxiety and the faint scent of rubber cement. From the kitchen, your spouse peeks in. "It's festive," they say slowly, scanning the room like it's about to be featured in a paranormal investigation. You nod. It's a theme. You don't say what the theme is, you're not entirely sure anymore. Cupid's breakdown, perhaps. Romance in turbulence. Or simply cardstock regret. You both sit beneath the chandelier, which is now supporting a paper cupid by one wing, and what appears to be a rogue candy heart reading "Be Mine." It's hanging at eye level, swaying like a tiny judgmental pendulum. You sip your coffee and try to ignore the soft crackle of another streamer giving up the will to cling. And yet, oddly enough, it's kind of perfect. Because this avalanche of pink desperation is real. It's not polished or poised. It's chaotic and crooked and made of 5-cent dreams. And maybe, just maybe, it's better that way. Maybe love isn't supposed to be flawless. Maybe it's meant to sag a little, fall apart sometimes, be taped back up with effort and hope and a deep, abiding love for clearance bins. Eventually, you and your spouse rise, carefully removing the decor like diffusing a pastel bomb. One cupid is gently folded. One streamer is retired with honour. And the chandelier? It keeps the candy heart, a memento of the madness, a tiny reminder that love, true, stubborn, occasionally sticky love, isn't always found in the perfect card or the right gift. Sometimes it's found in the crooked decorations, the upside-down cupids, the effort. Because in the end, no one remembers the perfect centerpiece. But they always remember the time you accidentally created a papercraft horror show in the name of love. Just when you think you're safe, a 1950s television relationship expert peers through the black and white screen and asks, "Gentlemen, did you remember the card?" You feel personally targeted. Even your dog looks at you with disappointment. You're slouched on the couch, still in your slippers, a bowl of popcorn slowly turning stale on your lap. The house is dim, quiet. The pink decor has been packed away, or more accurately, has fallen off the walls and been quietly shoved into a drawer. Your spouse is upstairs reading a magazine about 10 romantic gestures that don't involve a lawnmower, and for one blissful moment, it feels like the chaos of Valentine's Day has passed. Then the television crackles. The screen flickers into focus, revealing a square-jawed man in a sensible suit, and a tie so wide it could be mistaken for a small sail. He smiles warmly like a dentist who's just found another cavity. "Fellas," he begins, leaning forward slightly. "Valentine's Day may be over, but is your marriage?" You freeze mid-chew. He continues, calm and clinical. "Did you remember the flowers, the chocolates, the kiss on the cheek and the card? Or did you, like so many modern men, Leave it to the last minute and settle for a half-eaten box of caramels and a generic sentiment scrawled in blue ink. You glance down at your own handiwork. The card you gave, slightly wrinkled, possibly reused from 1952, still sits on the coffee table. You swear it glares at you. The television man now gestures to a visual aid, a crude diagram labelled the romance retention curve, showing a steady decline from honeymoon phase to shared resentment and separate beds. You instinctively sit up straighter. The dog looks at you again, this time with deep ancestral judgment. He knows. He's seen this before. Let's talk prevention, the expert says, pulling out a stack of pamphlets titled Courting Her Still, A Modern Gentleman's Guide to Marriage Maintenance. He smiles as if nothing could be simpler. You imagine your wife's expression if you handed her one of those pamphlets. It's not good. A fake couple appears on screen, reenacting a healthy romantic routine. He brings her a cup of coffee every morning. She laughs at his jokes. They hold hands during breakfast. Your own morning routine involves someone yelling about who forgot to put the margarine back in the fridge. The expert turns serious. Gentlemen, he says again, more solemn this time, you must never underestimate the power of a well-timed compliment, a clean shirt, or remembering her favourite pie. You panic. What is her favourite pie? Cut to a dramatic reenactment of what not to do, featuring a man who forgets the card entirely and gets served divorce papers on top of a cold meatloaf. It's played for laughs, but the audience laugh track sounds suspiciously threatening. You change the channel, briefly, but now you're stuck with a detergent commercial showing a wife so thrilled by stain-free linens that she kisses her husband with the force of a romantic comedy finale. You flip back. The expert is concluding, remember, the small things count, and if you didn't do them yesterday, it's not too late to start today. You sit there, quietly contemplating a late-night trip to the kitchen to craft a redemption gesture, a spontaneous note, a reheated donut, a sincere apology written in mustard on a paper towel. Maybe, maybe not. But one thing's certain, the television knows. It sees you. It sees all of us. And in 1950s America, even the cathode ray tube is complicit in your romantic performance review, because in a world where love is televised, critiqued and measured by the presence of greeting cards, you don't just celebrate Valentine's Day, you survive it, under the watchful, glowing eye of public domesticity. The perfume counter calls to you like a siren. 20 minutes and 17 test strips later, your arm smells like a garden that caught fire in a candy factory. You panic buy something labelled Bouquet du Passion and hope it says I love you instead of I panicked in retail. It's 5:15 p.m, the sun is low, the pressure is high, and you, brave soul, are standing in the olfactory war zone of the department store fragrance section, otherwise known as the Valley of Scented Regret. The air is thick with ambition and lilac. A saleswoman with a bouffant hairstyle, and the unshakable confidence of a woman who sold perfume to 4 generations of nervous husbands, glides toward you, like a predator in heels. She holds a bottle the size of a pineapple and mists it into the air. This one, she whispers, smells like desire and restraint. You nod slowly, as if that sentence made any kind of sense. She points to another. This is for the bold woman, but also for the woman who needs a reminder of who she used to be. You don't know what that means either, but it sounds risky. You pretend to consider it before drifting to a different section of the counter, where names like Eternelle, Velvet Heat, and Midnight Temptation for afternoon use only glint beneath the overhead lighting. Each bottle is an emotional gamble. 1 spritz and you're a thoughtful romantic. 2 spritzes and you're a man who once set the kitchen on fire trying to flambe a canned peach. By the 5th test strip, you can no longer tell the difference between jasmine musk and floral regret. You pause, close your eyes, breathe deeply. Bad idea. Now your sinuses are filled with something that smells like vanilla extract had a nervous breakdown in a gardenia bush. You cough once and knock over a display shaped like a heart. Small bottles tumble everywhere. One rolls to your feet, whispering dusk. It smells like tension and citrus. Probably not. The saleswoman returns holding a new vial. This one's very affordable, which is retail code for this is what your wallet can handle. As a sweetheart, you take it, sniff, and detect notes of rose, bergamot, and shame. You panic buy Bouquet de Passion purely because the label includes cursive and a gold ribbon. You don't even smell it. You just need to leave before your nose files a formal complaint. The bottle is nestled in pink tissue paper and sealed with a sticker that says "Romance starts here." You wish it said "No returns." At home, you place the gift carefully on the dresser. You try to act casual. Your spouse enters, eyes the package and raises an eyebrow. "Perfume?" they ask. You nod. It reminded me of you. There's a pause, a smile. Then they spritz it once and inhale. It smells apparently like a combination of strawberry soda, fresh laundry, and a confused memory of prom. Not ideal. But they don't say anything. They dab some on their wrist, kiss you on the cheek, and say, "Thank you." You exhale, relieved. Crisis, mostly averted. Later that night, the house still carries the faint aroma of your retail desperation. The dog sneezes twice. You pretend not to notice. The bottle of Bouquet du Passion sits on the nightstand like a mildly radioactive trophy, a symbol of effort, poor judgment, and the uniquely 1950s belief that love can be bottled, boxed, and gift-wrapped by 6 p.m. Because in the end, the perfect fragrance doesn't exist. But the attempt? That's what counts. Even if it smells like soap, fruit punch, and barely disguised fear. Determined to be original, you drag out the typewriter and attempt a heartfelt love letter. 5 typos, 2 jammed keys, and 1 coffee spill later, you end up with a ransom note that reads less like Shakespeare and more like a threat to the household goldfish. The machine stares at you from the desk, its black metal frame gleaming with the judgment of 1,000 unwritten apologies. You haven't used it since the Eisenhower campaign, and it knows. The keys clack with suspicion. The ribbon is older than your marriage, but you're committed to the bit now because nothing says deep emotional sincerity like a love letter, produced under duress by a machine that predates space travel. You begin, tenderly. "Dearest." Clack, clack, clack. But then the A jams. You jab it again. Still jammed. You try to skip it, realizing belatedly how many words in the English language depend on A. You soldier on. "Durest," it now reads, which looks like you're writing to a ghost or a Viking ancestor. No matter. Love is patient. Love is forgiving. Love has access to correction fluid. You keep going, attempting something poetic. Your eyes, like twin galaxies, shine brighter than, wait, thin. Then, it's both and neither. Because you misspelled it entirely and now there's a giant ink smudge where your passion was supposed to go. The machine hiccups and skips a line. You lean in, sweating. Your coffee sloshes and tips over, splattering across the edge of the page. The ink runs. Your letter now looks like it was written during a naval storm. You grab a new sheet, start over. This time, you get halfway through a heartfelt memory about your 3rd date before the L key breaks off completely and flies across the room like a tiny metallic boomerang. It lands in the fish bowl. The fish looks alarmed. So do you. "Never mind," you mutter, switching to short words. "I like you. You're good. We have time. Love me." It's honest. Stark. Possibly legally admissible in court, depending on interpretation. You scan the room for alternatives. A greeting card? Too late. A phone call? Not dramatic enough. A sonnet? Requires emotional capacity and knowledge of syllables. The typewriter stares back at you, daring you to keep going. You do. You try formatting, centered text, double spacing. You add your signature at the bottom in fountain pen for flair, then realize you signed it sincerely instead of with love. Panic sets in. You scratch out sincerely and write love over it. The page now looks like a document you'd receive from a passive-aggressive middle manager during an HR dispute. You fold the letter anyway. Slide it into an envelope that's slightly too small. The corners crumple. You place it carefully on your spouse's pillow and tiptoe away as if trying not to detonate a romantic landmine. Later you hear them open it. There's silence. Then a laugh. Then, blessedly, a kiss on the cheek and a hand on your shoulder. It's very you, they say, which is generous. You both pretend not to notice the coffee stain shaped like North Dakota, or the typo that says my forever fried. Because the thing about love letters, especially in the 1950s, is that they aren't judged by their polish. They're judged by their presence, their effort, their willingness to fail publicly in Times New Roman font. And in a world of mass-produced romance, a crooked, clunky letter says more than any scented card ever could, even if it does accidentally imply you're holding the family fish hostage. So tonight, as you settle under the covers, safe from both overpriced roses and the baleful gaze of a heart-shaped vacuum cleaner, take a moment to reflect on the hilarity and heroism of simply surviving Valentine's Day in the 1950s. You made it through a gauntlet of candy-coloured guilt trips, dinner table interrogations, and greeting cards engineered for maximum emotional leverage. You endured the relentless campaigns of ad men, the suspicious glances of in-laws, and the existential threat of running out of pink tissue paper. In the end, you gave your best effort. Maybe not a Hollywood romance, but a performance worthy of applause in the theatre of real life. Let's spare a gentle salute to those 1950s couples who paved the way, not with grand gestures, but with patience, creativity, and the stubborn refusal to let one corporate holiday ruin their marriage. Against the odds, they made it work, sometimes with a wilted bouquet, sometimes with a last-minute box of chocolates, and always with a dash of hope that next year might be easier. So as you close your eyes, be grateful for the small mercies of modern love, partners who appreciate sincerity over shiny packaging, relationships that survive without a receipt, and the freedom to celebrate romance, or not, in your own wonderfully imperfect way. Rest easy, knowing that you don't have to be perfect to be loved. Sometimes the most genuine kind of romance is just showing up, year after year, in a world determined to sell you more ways to say I care. Sleep well, and may your dreams be free of advertising jingles, guilt trips, and paper cupids. Good night.